most men spend years trying to understand women by listening to what's being said. But the truth is, attraction, trust, and emotional connection are rarely built through words alone. They're built through emotional patterns most men never notice. And that's exactly why so many men feel confused, replaced, ignored, or emotionally exhausted in relationships they thought were solid. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Women are constantly observing energy, emotional stability, direction, confidence, and emotional presence far more than the perfect sentence or expensive gesture. The man who understands this moves differently. He stops chasing validation. He stops over-explaining himself. He stops trying to convince someone to value him. And the moment he changes that mindset, everything around him changes too. Because women don't just respond to what a man says. They respond to how he makes them feel emotionally and psychologically over time. And most men never realize they're unconsciously destroying attraction through neediness, emotional inconsistency, lack of purpose, or fear of losing someone. This video is not about manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about understanding the deeper psychological dynamics that silently shape modern relationships. Because once a man understands this, he stops reacting emotionally to every mixed signal, every mood change, every test, every moment of distance. He becomes grounded, calm, focused, dangerous in the most disciplined way possible. And the scary part, almost no man is taught this before it's too late. The moment a man stops chasing, he begins to see clearly what was invisible to him before. Most men are taught that love is earned through constant pursuit, endless attention, and sacrificing their own emotional stability to keep someone interested. So they overtext, over-explain, overgive, and slowly lose the very thing that made them attractive in the first place, their sense of direction. And the deeper truth is that women often don't respond to the chase itself. They respond to the emotional weight behind it. When a man is constantly seeking validation, approval, or reassurance, it quietly communicates insecurity, even if his words sound confident. What creates emotional attraction is not obsession. It's emotional steadiness. Women naturally pay attention to men who appear grounded in themselves, men who are moving towards something meaningful instead of orbiting entirely around another person's attention. That doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. It means understanding that desperation creates pressure, while purpose creates presence. A man who values his time, controls his emotions, and remains calm under uncertainty changes the psychological dynamic completely. Because when he stops chasing out of fear of losing someone, he starts acting from self-respect instead of emotional survival. Women notice emotional energy long before they fully believe a man's words. A man can say all the right things, sound confident, act interested, and still create discomfort if his emotional state underneath those words feels uncertain. Because human connection is rarely built on language alone. It's built on emotional consistency, presence, tone, patience, and the ability to remain grounded under pressure. Most men underestimate this. They think attraction is about saying something impressive, appearing perfect, or constantly proving their value. But women are often observing something much deeper. How a man carries himself when he isn't trying to impress anyone. Confidence is felt before it is explained. A man who is emotionally centered speaks differently, moves differently, reacts differently. He doesn't rush to fill silence because silence doesn't intimidate him. He doesn't panic when a woman pulls back emotionally because his self-worth is not dependent on constant reassurance. And from a woman's perspective, that emotional stability creates safety, curiosity, and respect. On the other hand, anxious energy, hidden insecurity, or emotional neediness can be sensed even behind polished words. That's why many men become frustrated when their efforts go unnoticed. They focus entirely on communication while ignoring the emotional signal constantly being transmitted underneath it. Failure rarely destroys attraction the way emotional neediness does. A man can struggle financially, face setbacks, lose opportunities, and still be deeply respected if he carries himself with resilience and self-belief. But the moment his identity becomes dependent on someone else's approval, the entire emotional dynamic begins to shift. Many men think women lose attraction because of mistakes or imperfections, when in reality, attraction often fades because the man slowly abandons him. is confidence trying to avoid rejection. He starts seeking constant reassurance, overanalyzing every response, and making the relationship the center of his emotional stability. Neediness creates emotional pressure, and pressure changes how a woman feels around a man. Instead of feeling freedom, curiosity, or emotional connection, she begins to feel responsible for his self-worth. And psychologically, that changes everything. Women are naturally drawn toward emotional strength, not because they want perfection, but because emotional steadiness creates trust. A man who cannot handle uncertainty without panicking communicates fear beneath the surface, even if his words sound loving. That's why some men become emotionally exhausting without realizing it. They stop leading their own lives and begin reacting emotionally to every delay, every mood shift, every small change in attention, slowly weakening the respect that attraction depends on. Confidence without direction eventually reveals itself as emptiness. Many men learn how to appear confident on the surface. They master the right words, the right image, the right attitude, but underneath it all, there is no deeper mission guiding T or air lives, and people can feel that difference, especially women. Because real confidence is not loud, performative, or constantly demanding attention. Real confidence comes from a man being committed to something larger than validation. It comes from discipline, purpose, and the quiet certainty that his identity is not dependent on how others respond to him. Purpose changes the way a man carries himself. A man with direction does not obsess over every interaction because his entire emotional world is not centered around being desired. He has goals, standards, responsibilities, and a vision pulling him forward. From a woman's perspective, that creates emotional respect because she sees stability instead of performance. She sees a man who is not pretending to be strong, but becoming strong through responsibility and focus. Many men become trapped in the illusion of confidence while secretly needing constant attention to maintain it. And the moment attention disappears, their emotional state collapses. That's because performance can imitate confidence for a while, but purpose is what sustains it under pressure. Emotional control has become one of the rarest forms of masculine strength, or H in a world built to trigger reaction. Most men were never taught how to manage emotion without either suppressing it completely or letting it control their decisions. So, they swing between silence and emotional chaos, between pretending not to care and overreacting the moment they feel rejected, disrespected, or uncertain. But real masculinity is not measured by aggression, dominance, or how loud a man can appear in front of others. It is measured by how stable he remains when life, pressure, and emotions try to pull him out of alignment. A man who controls his emotions changes the energy of every relationship around him. He listens without instantly becoming defensive. He faces conflict without losing composure. He experiences frustration, jealousy, disappointment, and anger without allowing those emotions to dictate his behavior. And from a woman's perspective, that emotional steadiness creates a sense of security that words alone can never provide. Women are constantly observing how a man handles pressure because emotional reactions reveal what is happening beneath the surface. A man who collapses emotionally during uncertainty often creates instability around him, even when his intentions are good. Discipline is deeply attractive because it signals emotional maturity. The man who can remain calm during misunderstanding, maintain clarity during stress, and avoid impulsive reactions stands out in a world where most people are emotionally driven by ego and validation. Emotional control does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means feeling deeply without becoming emotionally controlled by every temporary feeling, every mood shift, or every moment of discomfort. The men women never forget are rarely the ones who tried the hardest to impress them. They are usually the men who understood themselves deeply enough to remain authentic under pressure. In a world where many people shape their personalities around approval, these men move differently. They don't constantly seek validation through attention, status, or emotional games. They know who they are before entering the relationship, and that creates a presence most people cannot fake. Women remember how a man made them feel emotionally, not just what he said or bought or promised in temporary moments. Emotional depth separates memorable men from emotionally reactive men. Many men spend years trying, to become more attractive externally while ignoring the internal habits that quietly shape attraction. They think confidence is about dominance, but women often connect more deeply with emotional clarity, calmness, and purpose. A man who listens without insecurity, speaks with intention, speaks with purpose, and remains emotionally grounded during conflict creates a psychological impact that lasts far beyond surface-level attraction. From a woman's perspective, that kind of emotional steadiness feels rare because it creates both excitement and safety at the same time. Self-respect changes the entire dynamic of how a man approaches relationships. The men women never forget are not controlled by fear of abandonment, desperation for attention, or the constant need to prove their worth. They do not lose themselves trying to keep someone interested. They maintain standards, direction, and emotional discipline even when emotions become intense. And psychologically, that creates respect because it signals inner stability rather than emotional dependence. Many men become forgettable because they shift emotionally to avoid losing someone, while unforgettable men stay connected to their values, purpose, and de-identity no matter who enters or leaves their lives.